In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at how to crochet the Bridge Cowl. The Bridge Cowl is the first cowl pattern in the Beyond the Double collection, and it is a very simple stitch pattern made with double crochets and these little eyelets. So how this cowl is constructed is we chain for the width of the cowl, and then we crochet the length, and then we just seam it at the end. And I just did a whip stitch to seam my cowl. It's pretty much invisible. And the yarn used for this cowl, all the cowls in this collection we crocheted using Knit Picks Bravo worsted, and this is the eggplant colorway, and this is also the yarn I'll be using in my sample today. So let's get started. Here's my work. I've followed my pattern and I've chained the number of stitches I need, and I'm doing a starting row of single crochet. So I'm just going to finish single crocheting to the end of this row. I have now single crocheted all the stitches. That's my setup row. Now I'm going to turn and be on a right side row. So now we get into our pattern repeat, and this pattern repeat is 4 rows. We just repeat the same 4 rows through the entirety of the cowl. And the first row reads, we start with a CSS, and that is an abbreviation for a chainless starting stitch. Now we'll be doing double crochets, and usually with double crochets we would chain 2 or 3 stitches to start, but this chainless starting stitch just gives us a nicer edge. It just is an edge I prefer to just chaining at the beginning of the rounds. It gives us just a bit of straighter edge. So that's what we're going to be doing. And how to do the chainless starting stitch, we just pull our first loop on the hook, we pull it a little bit taller, and we twist our hook, and we're essentially making the yarn over that we would instead of doing a double crochet making the yarn over. We're making the yarn over with that loop. And I have my finger here to keep this loop from twisting around, because otherwise it won't work. So we just pull our first loop a little bit taller, twist our hook, and then we get to go into that first stitch and just complete our double crochet like normal. And that's a chainless starting chain. Now it might be a little bit loose, but when you come back on the next row and work it, it'll tighten up, so it's okay. So that's our first stitch. And now we're going to double crochet 5 stitches. So yarn over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've double crocheted 5, and now we reach a part in our pattern, the repeat, and the repeat is marked in the pattern. It is in brackets. So this will be the repeat we do across the row. If we look at the end of the brackets, we do it twice across the row. So we're going to be chaining 2. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and then we're going to go into the 3rd stitch and work 6 double crochets across. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work a series of 6 double crochets. So yarn over, 1, 2, that's our skip 2, and now we work 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to do that twice. So we're going to chain 2 again and skip 2, 1, 2, and work 6 double crochets. 1, now we've done that repeat twice across the row. So now for the last part of the repeat, we chain 2, we skip 2, and then we work just 2 double crochets. and that brings us to the end of our first row. So that is the first right side row of the bridge cowl. And now we're going to work row 2. So we turn our work, and the next row we just chain 1, and now we're going to do 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, and now our pattern repeat for this one is we work 2 single crochets into the chain 2 gap. So we work 2 single crochets in here, 1, 2, and then we just work 6 single crochets, and we're just going to repeat that to the end. So we're just going to work 6 single crochets here, 2 single crochets in the gap, 6 single crochets, 2 single crochets into this chain 2 gap, and work to end. And now we're at the last stitch of this row, and this was our chainless starting stitch. And this one, you just kind of have to put your hook in to both at the top of that stitch, and you can just give it a little bit of a tug, and that'll tighten it up on the bottom if you're worried about it being loose. And it leaves us a nice straight edge. So that's row 2. And now we turn our work, and we're going to work row 3. I'm going to start row 3 off the same as we started row 1. We're going to do our chainless starting stitch. So we pull our loop long, we twist our hook, essentially yarn over, and we keep our index finger on that loop so that it doesn't twist, and then we just work a double crochet in that first stitch. And that's a chainless starting stitch. So we do that, and then we do 1 double crochet in the next stitch. Just 1 double crochet. Now we get into our pattern repeat, and our pattern repeat here is we chain 2, we skip 2, and just do 6 double crochets. So the same thing that we did for the first row, we're just offsetting it now. 4, 5, 6. You can see here our chain 2 gaps are offset, and so now I'm going to put the next one here. Creating our pattern. So I'm just going to finish my repeat here. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now the end of my row, I do chain 2. Oh, no, yes, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, and just do 6 double crochets to the end. And that is row 3. And now row 4 is similar to row 2. We chain 1, we single crochet to the chain 2 gaps, and then once we get to these chain 2 gaps, we're just going to put 2 single crochets into the gap. So we're just going to work 1, 2 single crochets, and we'll do that to the end of the row. And that completes our pattern repeat for the bridge cowl. You'll just repeat these 4 rows until your cowl measures as long as the pattern says, and then at the end you will just seam up the sides and you will have a completed cowl.